Welcome to the Slade Ham experiment. It is good to have you here aboard the Midnight Spaceship. It feels very lit up, this midnight ride. Come on in. We're going to talk about a couple of things, but mainly one big thing. This might just be a super long segment. We shall see. New dates on the books if you're interested. If you're in Houston, you're in luck. I'm playing quite a bit. I've got a solo date, brand new hour, or brand newish, if you saw me the last time I played Houston. But that show's coming. I'm there August 21st. And then I'm back August 28th with the Outlaw Comics. Myself, Jimmy Pineapple, T-Shawn Shannon, Juan Villarreal. I forget who else is on the show. Andy Huggins. It's a monstrous lineup. We're all going to be back at the Improv that following Wednesday. And then you can see an encore show, actually a different show, because we're all doing different sets. Another Outlaw show, October 8th at the Mucky Duck, the legendary McGonagall's Lucky Duck. So all those dates are on my calendar. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, you should do that. I've got some. I'll tell you more later in the episode about why you should do that newsletter. Sign up. But with that said, come on, let me pour some tea while it's still hot, and let's make an episode. This little tea kettle I brought back from Japan, and then the teacup came from there also. We should have nice things, and it's not even nice. I scooped this on a walk through Kyoto, I think, but it wasn't even expensive. But we should have some things we like. I know there's a minimalist movement out there, and I know a lot of people that are part of it, and I respect it. But for me, there's some comfort things. Now they're little things like that. I'm drinking a white tea, which is a Paimutan white tea. All right, we'll do a whole episode on tea at some point later. Again, I think the idea of a comforting item or something that is aesthetically pleasing is important. I know that's what Apple taps into. That's the part of your brain they're surgically poking at with their products. It's appealing. It's comforting. The way it feels to you. Electronics really used to be that thing for me. I would feel happy if I had a nice new electronic device. If I had a new Discman back in the day, had a mini disc player, and it was just blue and silver. It was just damn cool. And then it used to be phones. Those would be the things. If I'd get a new one, I'd always feel like I was ahead of the curve. I was one of the first guys with a keyboard phone. I had an old Sidekick. And then I had some sort of H2 made by somebody, and it clicked open, and that's where I first played Angry Birds. And then I remember my first phone with no keyboard, but I got the top of the line. I just spent my dumb money trying to make myself happy with electronics or whatever. It never worked. But now I feel like that's why I'm much happier shifting to little things that I bring back from places that bring me good memories when I use them. That's the purpose of having a thing. Oh, that reminds me of that time that was so wonderful. Right? Drinking from this cup. The importance of that exists, but the cell phone that's not the thing that's going to make you happy. It's not the thing you're going to feel good about having a new one of in your pocket, because that thing is almost out the door. How much longer do you think the cell phone makes it before it's no longer a thing we use? I mean, not the concept of the cell phone. The same way the concept of the phone did not disappear when the landline disappeared. But how long before this black rectangle that we all carry in our pockets is obsolete? I don't know. I don't know that this might only have 2-3 more years in it. That might be a reach as fast as things progress. What could replace it? I don't know. I haven't thought that far. Eventually, something inside of you, Neuralink or whatever, I'm never getting that. Yeah, you will. Or else you'll be punching buttons on a jitterbug phone. I'm never getting the internet. Okay, Grandpa. You either died or got it. There's always we always make that next shift. So what is it, right? Before it gets to a chip, it'll still be some peripheral. I don't think we're dumb enough to all put on a pair of glasses and walk around looking handicapped when we're not. But maybe a little disc that sticks to the side of your head? How hard is it to get something? All you need is a display and the ability to communicate, and everything else takes care of itself. So cell phones, I don't know if you're long for this world, but I am hoping sincerely that you don't stick around. I don't know. I can't say for certain that I can beat whatever's coming next, but I know damn sure that I'm having difficulty fighting against you every second of my life, cell phone. You're very hard to put down in a broke-back mountain, I can't quit you kind of way. It really does hurt so good to scroll and look at people's lives and judge and be distracted, and it's what I fight against every day. And I've won some of that fight. We'll talk about that in a second. I have been very open on this podcast about my struggles in this business, in what I'm trying to do and how I'm positioned against the industry and how all of that works and how I feel about it, right? I talk about it. And most of it ends with me very frustrated. And a lot of that has been because, so the whole road up to the special, extraordinary, frustrating, awesome, wonderful, heartbreaking, depressing, but also mainly net awesome. Then you shoot it. Then you go through the process of finishing it. And we talked about this back on other episodes about knowing what comes next, about making sure you have that box checked so that you don't fall into that pit of, what is my purpose on this planet? Because that's real. And in my head, I had solved for that. That's the frustrating part. When you're like, all right, no, I covered that base. And you turn around, you're like, and the building blew up anyway? Did we not have cops at the entrance? What happened here? That's basically what happened. The goal was to finish that special, burst through the door loudly, ta-da, and then go right into making the new special. Over the old one, into the new. Well, you can't really just move past one. You have to promote it. You have to talk to people. You have to look. There's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with something coming out. But mentally, creatively, I'd moved on. I'm gonna write this new show. I'm gonna get it punched up into shape. I'm gonna be touring it by summer. Well, the dates don't come. That was the realization. We talked about this 2 episodes ago, 3, about the incoming rejections and the way people are looking for the social media stars. And that's all fine, right? Because I'm now embracing that. Okay, that's the game we're playing. Cool. But it derailed the plan to spend probably my April through September really on the road working out this new show. What it turned into instead was absolutely no dates. My first stuff coming up really kicks off in Canada on the 9th. I'll be there for 2 weeks. You can catch me, by the way, in Toronto and then Ottawa. And then I come back. I've got San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. We're doing some big stuff. I've got outlaw dates. I go back to Louisville. Things pick up in the fall. But I've had this gap all through my summer that has not just been a gap. It's been a gap coupled with no income, which is compounded by the fact that a lot of financial there was a lot of output in making the special. Anyway, you put all of that into a gumbo, and it is not the best time to be off for the summer. And then you got to sit with the fact, well, what is my purpose? What am I doing if I'm off? What's going to happen? I've been telling myself I've been writing this book for 2 years. It's not untrue. I'd put almost 100,000 words. It was like probably closer to 80,000 words on paper. I said, I'm writing this book. It was not a book. Not even close. And I'll talk about what all was in that in a minute. But I'm currently, and in the last month, now all of this isn't writing from zero. Some of this is fished from what I thought was a trash pile. But mainly fresh words, 25,000 words this month. That's an extraordinary amount to some people, and that's a week for some people. Your mileage may vary, I've learned. National Novel Writing Month, Nano Week, whatever it is 50,000 words in a month is the challenge. So I'm on a slow pace, but I don't know that that's taken me a whole month. That might be the last 2 to 3 weeks. I want to talk about the process, because there are a lot of, I get asked this quite frequently about what you should do if I want to be a comic. What does that mean? What do I have to do? And it all comes with the concept of the social media portion. And I can't help you with that. But what I can help you with is how to actually do this. Because when people are, well, how do I get these numbers up, and how do I get people to book me, and I can't tell you. I don't know. But if those are the questions you're asking, then it doesn't matter, because you're not going to be here. You care about the wrong part. I know you want to care about the bookings and the money and doing this for a living. But that is a cart before all of the horses. What's important, I've learned, as I went through these 75,000 words of hot garbage that had fallen out of my dumb fingertips onto this keyboard. Just so you know, that's how we all feel about our art all the time. I've done this before. I've written a book. I got one. It's out. You can get it. So it's not impossible. I'm not staring down can I do this? No, I can do this. I've done it. But when you go back and revisit some of the past work, and then you revisit some of the stuff you've been writing, and then you go out and you really spend some time educating yourself, because this is an important ingredient in the recipe. I spent a lot of my career guessing. A lot. All of the things I wrote in the early 2000s, all through the MySpace days, and even into the nervous breakdown days, which is fascinating to me, because as I look back at that and reread the stuff I was publishing, the Nervous Breakdown was a literary site. I think I've said this before. I was the only, probably, unpublished author on the site. And when I look back at what I was writing, it would incite conversation. It would break records in the comments. And I was very well liked. But some editor should have said, hey, man, we should teach you to write. You don't understand some stuff. You don't get some basic story concepts. You don't understand some basic grammar, some grammatical rules. You don't understand there's stuff some very glaring errors that even me, as a not great, I'm not even now capable of editing or noticing that kind of stuff. And I notice it. It's like, oh my God, how bad did I let myself get back then? I didn't know better. So you go out, you read a ton of books, you watch a lot of lectures, you spend a couple of years basically going to college. And in the meantime, you're not publishing anything. You're writing, you're doing stuff, you're these 100,000 words are falling out of you, along with bad scripts and terrible short stories and things you don't finish because you knew they sucked before you started them, and you were certain they sucked once you got halfway into them. And then some of them you finished and you didn't do anything with. And you find you've got a whole 2 movie scripts that are just in random forms of disorder. I'm never going to finish those. All these things that have just kind of fallen out over the years. Yeah, all right. What do I do with that? You sit down, you read through it, and you realize that the only way I'm able to be where I am right now, which is 25,000, when I say 25,000, like 20 of those are well written, like they're drafts. They're in not done, but they're in read these and let's get them done form. The other 10,000 is in, it's past, we'll talk about the different versions of drafts here. It's past my vomit draft form, and it's into, like, the structure's there, and now I'm into, all right, let's beat this thing into, we know about how long it is and about where it's going. Let's just write it, because all the bones are there. So that's like, it's a third of the book I'll write 75,000 words. I'll probably cut this to 65. So there's like traction. Now I'm planning on having a finished like final draft by the end of August. That's not out of reach. Start plugging in some beta readers, which I've talked to some of you about, right? Yeah, you start reading this. Let's see where I just have total blind spots. And I'm saying all of this. We'll come back to the process and how all of this works. I'm saying all of this to say that this is a very frustrating business. And it's very, very hard some days, most days, almost every day to feel like what you're doing has a purpose. I was trying to think of a different way to say that. To feel like there's meaning to the ideas that you're chewing on and the things that you think and is a comic, the stuff you find funny, the stories you want to tell that they're interesting. We question that all the time. And then that is compounded by the sheer overwhelming avalanche of rejection letters that come just by nature of being in the business. We've talked about those percentages, right? Maybe it's 1% is an actual hit, like of a response. 10% response rate, 1% telling you what you want. It's insanely dejecting if you sit in it. So you couple all of that together. It is very hard if you're an artist to make all of this make sense. When you're up against the pressure and the fear of missing out and other people's success, if you're a young kid and you're thinking about doing comedy, this is what scares me, right? This is why I think I'm so rigidly against the social media movement for media the way it exists, is because it is ruining that process. The one I'll explain to you here in a minute. The process of writing, if you take a chapter in the book, let's explain it now. I have a story, I have a nugget, I have a thing in my brain that I go, I want to write about that time Sam and I'm going to use this as a fence post. Sam and I were at this motorcycle rally. Sam's my buddy, black dude, dreadlocks. We're at this motorcycle rally in the middle of the woods in East Texas, and there were all the Dale Earnhardt Confederate flags. So I'm going to tell that story, but I'm going to tie it to, I have like this idea in my head, and you try to outline it, but your brain won't get there. So at some point you just punt and you have to start writing. This is the truth about it. Everything about writing is not writing until you're actually writing. And I hate having to say that out loud, but I need to hear it sometimes. So at some point you put fingers to keyboard and words come out. And you can't stop to think about these words. These words, that's why it's called a vomit draft. They just have to fall out. Is that all right? We don't have time. It trails behind you like a cruise ship patron who fell off, and you just see him disappear in the foam and the darkness. Well, shouldn't have been drinking like that. Get one of those Indian security guards over here. There's a guy in the water. You have to just dump it all out. And that chapter could be, who knows? You write until you're done. And if you can't think of something at the time, it's very, very, very simple to go, I'm going to go look it up. But you can't, because that's 45 minutes of rabbit holes on the internet. So you just go, look this up later, and you keep typing. Because once you're in that pocket, you got to stay in that pocket. And this isn't just prose. This is comedy. This is, hey, I'm going to write about this topic. You got to just blah, 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 all of it out. Everything. Is this a good idea? Is it dumb? Who cares? Put it on the paper. You're going to need it all. You don't even need to look back at it. Your brain needs to be poking and prodding and clawing and looking underneath and lifting up the rug and digging through the closet of all these ideas around the subject. That's what I was doing when I was writing those 100,000 words. They weren't even a vomit draft. A vomit draft indicates you're at least trying to tell a story. This was a lot of, they say show, don't tell, which is, if you're reading a book, it's why you check out of a book when you see an author. If they say something like, Jane was angry, that has It's pointless. You're just telling me Jane was angry. It's, Jane flung the coffee cup across the kitchen or whatever Jane does when she's crazy. Now I know that Jane is angry, right? They would say, use a better word. Use furious instead of angry. Why don't you just use an action instead of a dumb word, and it's better? But that's the point. That first dump of words was all tell. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. It was very informational. That's why I was so sad when I read most of it back. You go, well, I've written nothing. How could I have written 100,000 words and written not a thing? That seems impossible, yet I did. And yet, this is the importance of, in stand-up, why you're brainstorming, why you're spitting out all the dumb ideas. Once you've done all of this, once I'd written all those words, I didn't try to fix it. I mean, I did, and then I got so frustrated I quit. And then I tried again, and I was like, this is stupid, and I quit. And I might have tried a third time, but it was pointless. I just let it sit. Because your brain will do something really cool. It will take all of this sloppy gumbo, the big pile of raw ingredients that you've been chopping and throwing on the counter and doing all the stuff with, and it will turn the burner on. And it will start to cook. And it will start to come together. And then you will smell something. You go, what's that? That's kind of like that. And you'll wander over and you go, this looks edible. It didn't look edible. It looked like a bunch of crap on my counter that I left out for rats and roaches. And suddenly, I might want some of this. Let me get back. Let me get a bowl. Because your brain will find the story. It will find the commonalities. It will, in the background, if you train it and you let it, put the pieces together for you. This is why the secret to becoming a good stand-up comic has nothing to do with how well you do on a Wednesday night open mic and how many clips you can cut from that. That doesn't teach you how to be a stand-up. What teaches you to be a stand-up is to learn to dissect a topic, to look at something from every angle, including the angles you don't necessarily like or agree with, to talk about it, to think about it, to chew on it. And if you're doing that with a lot of things at the same time, what happens is they'll run into each other and they'll make a new thing. And that new thing won't look anything like any of the things anybody else has ever done. And they'll call it weird or dumb or different. But it can also be beautiful. And in those moments, you'll find you're doing something that all these other knuckleheads who are out chasing clips haven't done. You'll have learned to tell stories. You'll have learned how to get them out into the world, whether as a writer or as a producer or as a filmmaker or just as a stand-up comic. Those are the things you're trying to learn. And the way you learn them is by doing all of this stuff now that feels all the time like it doesn't mean anything. But if you're intentional with your time, which is what I'm attempting to be when I say I'm trying to create more than I consume, when I look at my day and I go, can I spend these 4 hours laying on the couch watching House of Dragon, which may or may not get better? Or should I spend these 3 hours with the laptop at the coffee shop chugging black coffee and sugar so I can stay awake while I hammer away at these new stories, because I'm convinced there's a much, 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 much better book in me than the one that I wrote before. And this book, where it differs, not that I'm upset with the first one. It was the best I could do at the time. But the first one's a very look at me book. It's a lot of stories that are somewhat introspective, but it's me tiptoeing right up to the edge of my comfort zone and then bailing. I'll hint at some things and then move on. Hint and move on. You read it. You go, oh, there's probably a human in there somewhere. This was different. It's interesting what comes out when you're writing, and ultimately you never know until you start writing. And that, my friends, is the whole point. At the end of the day, if you get into what you're interested in, if you learn a little bit about it, then you learn a little bit more, and every day you make it your job to focus on the craft of it, the fun part will take care of itself. I know. It's easy to chase the good stories. Just say yes every time something cool comes up, and then keep trying to make cooler stuff come up. That part's easy. But learning what to do with all of that, so that it's not just this random string of experiences. So it's not just and then. That's not what you want. You don't want to and then. You want to, was it Trey Parker who was saying this? You want to and then because. Is that how he phrased it? Can't remember. A but then, maybe. That's what it was. Or a therefore. But there has to be some cause and effect to stuff. And a story has to go somewhere. And it has to have some meaning. And in this case, maybe it's going to be helpful to some other people as well. And that, no matter what happens, seems like a win. Thanks for watching. It's the Slade Ham Experiment. Cheers, everybody. I'll see you on another episode soon.